You're probably guilty as charged if you've ever added values like this in Excel. You see, anytime you add values by selecting the cells instead of selecting a range, you increase the risk of making errors. That is not cool. In this second approach, you realize how my formula updates automatically when I add a new value. However, I had to manually adjust the formula in the first instance to include the new value. I hope I made my point. In an attempt to understand how Excel thinks when it comes to summation, let's perform this simple exercise. When I put my cursor on this cell and click on the Auto SUM function, you would realize Excel gets the correct position of the text and correctly sums the values to the left of the active cell. Cool? Can you take a guess what would happen if we put the cursor in a cell that contains value to the left and to the top of the active cell? Well, you guessed right. The first guess would be to the top, as we are more prone to adding values vertically than horizontally. But then again, you can always change the direction if you so wish. In the next scenario, I can guess how you would have added these values if you needed to input totals for month on month and then for each of these products for this data set. The traditional way, not so cool. Let me show you a cool way of performing this summation in one click using the keyboard shortcut key Alt and equals to. With the data selected and an extra margin for the summation fields, I can sum the entire table by pressing the Alt plus the equal to sign. And in one click, all my summations appear correctly. How cool is that? Our next objective is to compute the monthly sales as a percentage of the total sales. And like any other good formula in Excel, all we really need to do is write the formula once and copy it through. This is what introduces the concept of absolute and relative referencing in Excel. By default, all cell references are relative. If you want to hold a portion of the formula constant, then you would have to do that individually. So, in this scenario, I want to be able to make an absolute reference to cell H18, which is the grand total, so that as I drag along the formula from January to June, the cell B18 changes from all the monthly totals, but the grand total remains constant. Generally, we lock down cells by introducing $signs into the cell reference. This can be inputted manually or using the F4 function on the keyboard to lock the particular cell reference, in this case, cell H18. To further cement the idea of absolute referencing, let us take a look at another example. In this example, our objective is to create the projected sales value for 2020 by increasing the 2019 sales value by 3%. We are unable to achieve this correctly due to the relative cell reference that applies by default. Therefore, we need to lock down cell E2, which is the 3%, to enable us hold that portion of the formula constant, or in other words, absolute. When you click on the F4 function multiple times, it gives you 3 ways you can lock a cell down. I usually see people using the default double $signs in most cases without recourse to what they actually mean or how each of this works. The cell E2 is made up of a column reference E and a row reference 2. The first scenario is where we apply the $sign before the letter E and before the number 2. This presupposes we want to lock the cell in both directions when dragging, that is, the rows as well as the columns. In the second scenario, if I apply the $sign only before the letter E and not the 2, it presupposes I only want to lock down the column reference and not the row reference, since the E refers to the columns. And in the third scenario, if I apply the $sign only before the 2, it presupposes I only want to lock down the row reference and not the column reference. After doing this, you can now drag down safely and be sure your cell reference will constantly refer to cell E2, which is what we are looking for in this case. I hope this helps you a lot in understanding the concept of absolute and relative referencing in Microsoft Excel. It actually gets more interesting with mixed referencing, but that will be for another day. If you learned something new from this tutorial, please share so others can also learn. Nunya Afaro is the name, aka Mr. Cool. Always remember, work smart and not hard. Cool.